Today we're going to be looking at how to flatten the back of a plain blade or chisel. The process is identical. First thing we need is a blade. So I have one of these new Stanleys, the old stamped thin ones. That's what I'm going to use because it's not been flattened before, so this is a perfect candidate to show you exactly how this operation works from brand new. You could also use it on one of these more modern style ones here. This one happens to be a Lubin. It's already been flattened, so it's not the most ideal for me to show you. We will have a look at this chip breaker when we get on to that video later on in the series. So for now, we're going to look at the blade. So this is my 400 grit diamond stone. Now, when it comes to choosing stones, and we will have a look at that a little later in the series, 400, 800, 1200, they're roughly the ones I like to work with. Some people like to go up to 10,000 grit stones. I don't tend to do that. I use a strop. When we come to the water stones, I do have a set of stones that goes on slightly different grits to these, so we'll talk about that when we get to the water stones. For now, let's get these out of the way, and we're going to start with our 400 grit roughly. I'm just using some automotive Windex here. I like the automotive one because it doesn't have, I believe it's ammonia, so it's not going to harm anything. This one here has a coating on it to prevent it rusting in the storage, so we will be removing that as part of this. Now, I'm just going to get a Sharpie and just black this whole area. Now, a lot of people will tell you only need to do 1 inch. When it comes to a plain blade, I actually just like to do the whole thing, unless we have a hollow in here, which we'll talk about if we have that on this. Otherwise, I like to flatten the entire amount. And yes, most people will tell you only have to do this once, although it's actually good practice to check this once every year or two, because metal, being a natural product, does move. Some of these modern alloys actually tend to move more than the older style of metals, so just something to be prepared to actually check this occasionally. So now that I've done this, and we've wet the stone, whatever liquid you're actually using to do it is what you'll put on here. Now, we want to come in and we want to sit it down on the top like this in our alignment, and we want to hold it so we can keep it flat. And then we want to move it back and forwards. If you can get some non-slip, that actually works quite well, something to stop it sliding around. Or you can just hold it here and be careful not to cut your fingers. You can see here where we removed it in the shiny bits. And that means in this case we have what's known as a hollow to it, because we've got this big area where we haven't removed, but around the outside edges we have removed the material. So this is the best case scenario when you're getting a blade. If it's the other way and you've removed a little bit in the middle and you're missing everything everywhere else, then you're going to have what's called a belly, and that's going to take much longer because you're going to have to remove a lot of material across the entire thing to actually get it flat. Now, with diamond stones, I like to turn them around. With water stones, it's good practice as well. You just want to evenly work your entire stone. Now, I'm not sure how many passes that was. I'm not really counting. Oh, we can see a shiny spot here where we're scratched off. Shiny spot here. And a little shiny spot down here, which indicates that there's actually a slight twist in this particular blade. So this is actually going to take a little bit longer than I thought, because we have a slight belly here. Oh, sorry, we've got a slight belly on this side, slight hollow through some of this because there's an ever so slight twist in it. We need to get that out if we want to use this with a chip breaker to get the chip breaker to mate with this blade properly, and just to get the thing sharp. So what I wanted to do here is switch from this blade, because you don't want to watch me flattening this, doing the exact same thing for 3, 4, 5 hours. I'm not even sure how long this one's going to take. because it does have that twist in it, which is going to be problematical, and I want to continue the additional videos using this blade. So we will need to sharpen this, but what I'm going to do is switch across to my lubing blade, finish the process that we've started here on this one. Because it's already flat, I know it's going to not take too long, just so you can see what we do after the initial flattening is done. Then I want to move on to this blade, or move back to this blade, and show you a different process where we don't have to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. This is going to be a much quicker process. It's called the ruler trick, and it'll speed up your problematical blades. So let's jump down here, finish off this demo. So we're going to come in with this. You can see on this one, it's the same scratch pattern all the way across here. Ignore some of these other spots. That's irrelevant. That was just some bad machining that I didn't want to remove. But we've got this flat all the way across. Clean our coarse stone, put that out of the way, and get our next one, 800 grit. Now, we want to move this until we see our scratch pattern change that's here. You can blacken it once again if you want, but that's really not going to help you see whether the scratch pattern changes, so it's something you've got to judge by eye. You can actually start to see here, just on the bottom, scratch patterns are a little bit finer. I'm not sure if you can see that. They're a little bit finer here. There's still a couple of thicker ones just up here, so we've got to go back to the stone for a little bit longer. So what we're essentially doing here is just smoothing the back of this out now through the grits, so we get more of a polished surface, and so when we go to make a chip breaker against this, it's smooth. We don't have any really heavy ridging from our stones. But you want to do that in stages so it happens fairly quickly. So I can see that the scratch patterns have now changed on this. I'm hoping you can see the difference there. It doesn't show up the best on camera, unfortunately. So now we want to do that once again, and this is my 1200 grit stone, or approximately, if you've got a 1500 or a 1200 or even 1000, you're probably going to be fine. So I can now see, and hopefully you can, that that's even finer again. I'm trying to use that light just for you to see, and my scratch pattern has changed. You might feel a burr coming across your bevel here, but since we haven't sharpened that, it's not really what you're looking for. So you're looking for it to be nice and smooth there, and we can actually see that in doing that we've removed the rest of that thick shaping up the back here. So we're going to head back down here, make sure our stones are clean. You don't want to leave them dirty. We'll put them out of the way, and we're going to grab what's called a strop. Now, this is leather on an MDF substrate. Now, you could use MDF straight by itself with some honing compound. Now, this has been impregnated with what's called honing compound. So the honing compound that you'd use on a strop like this are these green blocks. It's aluminium oxide and sometimes some other things in there, but aluminium is generally what they use in these blocks, as far as I'm aware. Correct me if any of you have seen some different ones, but these green ones tend to be that, and this is the one I'm using. This particular one is just from the big box store, designed for a buffing wheel, so you get a much bigger block that's going to last you almost a lifetime because you don't use a lot. The other thing you could use on something like that, something like ATTRIBUTION, but I don't recommend using these liquid ones on those because they make more of a mess, and this stuff works really well. So to charge our leather, we literally just rub it onto the surface, and you can see our green tinge here now. Now, we want to be careful with this because we want to keep it flat. We don't want to push down hard. We just want to move it back and forwards on that strop. And what this is going to do is remove some very fine, minute bits of steel. This honing compound is up to about 10, 12,000 grit or equivalent. And we can see here, we've got some black streaks coming through. So we're actually starting to take metal off as we rub it back and forwards on this. I will do that 50 times is quite commonly the count. I'm not sure how many times I've done this, but we can see that that is a nice fine mirror polish now, and that's the back of our blade ready for us to sharpen, find our burr, remove our burr, and use the blade. So that is the process. It's a very simple process, but as I said, it can be quite time consuming, especially if you end up with what I've got going on here. So I've just been sharpening this, and you can actually see around here that it's not flattening right on the edge, which means that it has a little more of a belly and is going to take probably 3-4 hours to flatten this. Now, I know some of you are not going to want to do that. So there's a little trick called the ruler trick. Now, this ruler is a little 150mm long Spear & Jackson ruler. It is 1.5mm thick. You don't really want a ruler any thicker than that. 1.5, 1mm, the thinner the better, in my opinion. So we lay this on the far side of our stone. Now, this happens to be 75mm wide. You don't really want to do it on a stone any narrower than this, but you could. So we lay the ruler down here, we wet everything, and the idea is that that's going to stick on your stone and stay there. Now, what we do is we feed our blade right in, and we reference right across to the other side of our stone. Now, it's important that you keep it there because what it's going to do is form a very, very fine or small back bevel. Now, a back bevel is just a bevel on the back of your cutting angle here. Now, one caveat with this, if you do this to flatten it and you have to come and flatten this again, you'll have to use the ruler again. Now, to just remove a burr, you probably don't need to do that, but it is probably advisable that you do just do this. So if you're not doing it to all of your blades and you're just doing it to some, you're going to have to remember which ones have this back bevel. Otherwise, you're going to maybe run into a few issues. I've not had too many issues, but I don't tend to actually do this unless the blade is really bad. So what we do now is we work it back and forwards. And in this case, we're not looking to flatten in a big flat area on the back of the blade. We're just looking to flatten enough behind the cutting edge. So hopefully you can see there now that it's going from a wider bit here to a thinner bit down here. It hasn't come all the way to the edge here, so we just need to do that for a little bit longer. And once we've got it right the way across there, it means that edge is flat. So now we've done that, we'll move back to the 800 group, which I started on by accident. It's a small area, so this really doesn't take long. But you can only really do this if you've got the same type of stones, because that means that everything's going to be the same as you work your way through. And then to the 1200, which once again won't take long. Looking nice and shiny. We can see that it's not gone right out to that edge like I mentioned before, and that means the edge is actually rolled out ever so slightly on this one. It's not going to matter in the end, so we're just going to leave that for now, and we're going to move on to the strop. And we just strop it like we did the other one. And you should be able to nicely see where we've got an ever so slight back bevel here. You got the original flattening I was trying to do back here, and then you got this back bevel flattening that you can see up here. The fact that it's on an angle across here tells you there's actually a twist in the blade as well, so hopefully we don't have too many issues when we go to make the chip breaker on here. I'm thinking it'll still be fine. So there you have it, folks. That's the easy and quick way to flatten the back of your plain blades and chisels. And also the bonus tip for a plain blade where you can use the ruler trick. I wouldn't recommend using the ruler trick on any of your chisels, although you could probably get away with it, especially if you're not referencing flat, but I personally don't think it's a good idea on your chisels. And I save it on my plain blades for only my worst candidates. So that's up to you whether you want to do it on all your plain blades. So if you like this video, please do like and subscribe down below. While you're down there, do sound off in the comments. What processes do you use? Do you have any more questions? Do leave them down below, because don't forget, we're going to do a series, so if I have to answer some dedicated questions, I'm happy to do that in video form too. And if you'd like to see some more videos, such as the one you've seen here today, do check out the videos on screen now. Do note, one of them will be the next video in this series. Bye for now.